All right, Kevin, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey man, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, dude, we were talking before, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm a little nervous." I'm like, "How are you nervous? You do podcasting. Like this is a thing that you do."
I do, man. I do. I love doing it. It's kind of my way of working through my anxiety, to be honest with you. It's kind of, I'm a very anxious person, very shy person. But be doing the podcast has actually helped a lot with that. It's helped me with, communication and then getting my anxiety down to a little bit minimal. I'm able to talk a little bit better to people and socialize a little bit better too, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, that's it's funny because um, I think that's a common thread between a lot of people that do this sort of thing. Even
Mhm.
people who do YouTube and stuff like that. It's like everyone on the outside would think that they're like very outgoing, very um, you know, talkative in a
Yeah.
crowd, like life of the party. Not really so much. From what
No.
I've gathered and from what I've experienced myself, um, yeah, I'm terrified of talking in front of people. Like that, I know
Same.
it sounds crazy that I talk into a camera, but that's different. It's different. They get to see me later. It's not in the moment. I'm not worried while I'm talking, you know. Um, but yeah, like I actually just, and I probably mentioned this in the intro that I haven't recorded yet, but I just got news that I'm going to be able to do a live show at a local
Yeah.
con or fan con, and that scares the hell out of me. I am so nervous for that. And people are like, "Really? But you do this? You have several podcasts and you do YouTube." And I'm like, "It's a different thing. That is a totally different thing. I'm scared to death to do this." So it's kind of one of those like facing your demon things. But it does help. Like the more you do this type of stuff, the more comfortable it becomes.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, and it's helped out a lot. And first of all, I just want to say congratulations on that. Like that's
Thank you. Thank you.
that's massive, man. Like when I saw you post that on Twitter, I was like, man, that's so cool. Like
It's
I'm
huge.
excited for you, and I know, like you said, you're nervous and all, but I know
Yeah.
you got this, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of
Um,
course.
So, well, let's talk a little bit about you because we mentioned that you do podcasts, but that's not all you do. Um, but let's kind of start from the beginning. Like, have you always been? You're just like a big old nerd, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
into
Oh yeah.
everything, geeky, pop culture, everything, just like the rest of us.
Absolutely, yeah. My whole life has just basically been about pop culture. I just remember ever since being a kid, like when I was a kid, my big dream was to work for Disney. Like I wanted to be an animator for Disney. Like I loved animation so much, which kind of led me into and I loved reading. And then that's kind of how I discovered comic books. I was like, wait, there's these animated things that you can also read. Like it's this weird combination that I didn't actually, I grew up knowing what comic books were and everything like that, but I didn't really have access to them. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really have anyone in my family who was big comic book nerds or anything like that, but I knew who I knew who Spider-Man was, I knew who Batman was, I knew who Superman was, and that's from various cartoons and TV series and things like that. But it wasn't until I became a teenager, a younger teen, that I started to be able to, I was collecting more allowance, so I was able to buy more comic books. So, I, dig in with got into actually I got into DC first, and
Really?
DC Comics is still probably when it comes to comic books is still kind of my preferred, you know, um, company when it comes to comics. But TV shows, movies, things like that, I tend towards more towards Marvel. Um, but yeah, it's kind of just been my whole life, man. Just kind of loving all the nerdy pop culture stuff.
Yeah, I can kind of relate with the DC thing, but it's a recent revelation for me. So I've gotten into DC a lot more in the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years. Just
Gotcha. Yeah.
finally going in and like delving into classic Batman stories and reading like Mark Waid's Flash and just getting into different aspects of DC that just I don't know, wasn't on my radar. I mean, I always loved Batman, but like that's
Right.
a culture thing. Like Batman because of
Exactly.
the animated series, because of the films, because you know that's their cash cow at DC. Like without
Exactly.
Batman, I don't know if they'd still be around right now.
No, they wouldn't.
But I I've just loved delving into like the back catalog over at DC here lately. Um, And I still gravitate toward, even with Marvel, I gravitate toward the stuff I grew up with. Like I want
Yeah,
to go back and read
same.
those stories,
Mhm.
almost more than I want to dive into new stories. Like I just want to live in that nostalgia forever. Um,
Right.
but so much fun. I'm going back and collecting trades of everything, Dark Knight Returns and
Same.
Batman Year One and Long Halloween and all that Batman stuff. And then on the Marvel side, um, I just finally got Daredevil Born Again. Um, I went back and bought my childhood favorite, which is the X-Men Age of Apocalypse, the
Oh
entire
yeah.
storyline. And I found that in 3 trades and I was like, yes, this is so much nostalgia for that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I'm very, very, very similar. Feels like my whole life. I think I got into buying comic books around 11 or so.
Same.
Like I had a little bit of money, like,
Yeah.
chore money or whatever to spend,
Mhm.
and I would go to the local grocery store and buy them off the spinner rack, which don't exist anymore, sadly.
Right. I remember one of my first comics that I remember buying was actually it wasn't the Death of Superman, it was the one where he comes back, right? Where you have the different versions of him and stuff like that. That was the first one that I remember. What was that, like 93, 94 maybe? I could be,
Yeah,
yeah, something like
definitely mid 90s, yeah.
yeah. That was the first one that I was really proud to buy with my own money. The other ones had been kind of like, little ones that you find on the shelf, nothing specific, just kind of whatever I could get my hands on. But that was the first one I remember like saving up for. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I have to get this when it comes out. Got a ride there, and I was able to pick that up. So that
Yeah.
was,
How much were comic books back around then? I remember paying for my first comic book. I think it was $1.95 for my
yeah.
first
Yeah, it was about $1.95, about $2 maybe. But no, I'd say about $1.95 sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. My first comic book was Wolverine number 95. I remember it very, very vivid. Um, and yeah, that's where it all started for me. The X-Men animated series led me to X-Men comic books, um,
Same.
and then everything else. And I think that's a story with a lot of people of
Hmm.
that generation, kids who grew up in the 90s. Just that's how you got into comic books for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I got into them. I started watching the animated shows, and then it really got piqued my interest in X-Men. And then, when the movies came out, like that was a huge revelation too. Like that was freaking amazing, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, don't you just feel lucky sometimes that you were born in this perfect
Mhm.
block, where you were just the right age for like to long for an X-Men movie or a Spider-Man movie
Exactly.
for at least a couple years, which in your childhood, a couple years is like a decade, right? So it felt like forever that you were into this stuff before they came out with a movie of this stuff.
Mhm.
And but we're in the perfect age to where I think X-Men came out my freshman year of high school. That's when X-Men came out.
Okay.
Um, and I remember it being a thing because I was into the X-Men from like fourth grade. And so
Right.
it like I waited forever and then I was like, but I imagine all the people who were waiting from the 70s or the
You know,
80s.
I was born in 1980, so I'm a little bit older. So like I remember when that movie came out, like I was what, 2000, right? When it came
Yeah,
out, when the first
20.
X-Men movie came out.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I was 20 years old, so like it was a long wait for that. You got to read all the behind the scenes drama and stuff. What was happening, nobody really knew, and it was, as comic book movies weren't really you had Blade, you had Spider-Man, of course, which had come out. I believe, did it come out before or after X-Men?
Well, X-Men came out first, Spider-Man
Okay,
came out 2002, the first
that's
ones.
right. Was it 2002? Oh gosh, yeah. Sorry, got my dates. I'm getting older, man. You got to remember the dates.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when X-Men came out. That was a big deal. I was actually working at the theater at the time, and that was like people were. It was insane.
Yeah, it was crazy that it was even happening. So yeah,
Hmm.
imagine like now it's like so commonplace. I don't think that people really get it. Like
No.
people even people right now who are maybe 30 years old, they don't get it. They don't get
Hmm.
it because their whole lives that they can remember, they've always had comic book films, whether it
Yeah.
be X-Men, what have you, and most of that time they've had the MCU. So
Yep.
um, which is a whole level up from everything else. Like when it started and took off, it was like, oh, this is what it can be.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
my son was born in 2007, and 2007 was kind of, I think the year before. Wait, when did Iron Man come out? Iron Man came out
8.
2008, so the year before. So he doesn't know a world without the MCU. Like everything he knows
Mhm.
is the MCU. So like anything before that, like I try to show him, Batman 89 and all those movies, and he's like, I don't, it's cool, but like, who's Michael Keaton? Like, I have no idea. Even the older X-Men movie, he did like X2 though, because obviously Hugh Jackman is still, pretty
Yeah.
big in that aspect. But yeah, it's so crazy to think that there are kids out there who don't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a wonderful world to live in. I'm glad
Absolutely.
that I get to enjoy it. That I'm not
Absolutely. Same.
too old yet. I'm not a bitter old man yet about it. Like, you know,
Oh, I still love it, man. I
yeah,
still, you know, it's a good bonding thing, especially I bring up my son specifically because he's really into that stuff. I have a daughter too who's 10, so she's kind of into some of the stuff. She'll go watch the movies and stuff, but me and him, that's like our thing. And I'll always, even when he's older and off to college, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna call you up, be like, we're gonna go watch this Marvel movie. We're gonna go. I don't care how old I get. It's always gonna happen.
yeah. I can get my son into specific things. So I have 3 kids. They're all very different. Very different. Like the
Okay.
oldest one doesn't seem much really into the superhero stuff at all. Yeah, he's 12. The one right behind him is 11, and he's the one that will watch superhero stuff with me. We watched almost the
Nice.
entire series of the Flash, the CW
Oh
Flash,
yeah.
and
Same.
it took us years, but we like watch an episode every, a couple episodes a week or whatever. Um, and that's how I got him in because I'm like, oh, check
Nice.
out this Flash thing. Because forever I would take him to the movies, but they just were like, whatever, it's fine. But they're
Right.
a little too young to really get it. And but yeah, I think his fandom kind of took off with the Flash. He's not. It does feel weird when you're a bigger fanboy than your kids. Like this stuff is made for like preteens, teens, younger people.
It
Really,
is.
I mean that's the target audience that's going to last 20 years. So
Hmm.
to feel like I love it way more than them feels kind of weird. I'm dragging them along, kicking and screaming. Yeah, you
Right.
have to see Endgame. Um, but yeah, and then my daughter, she's 9 and she loves Spider-Man. Like,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, she loves Spider-Man. So got like Spider-Man on her wall and stuff. But is she like deep into it? No, I mean she's 9. But
Right.
she'll get there.
That's so
But
cool.
I honestly think she'll probably be the biggest of all my kids in terms of like fandom and like bonding with me over superheroes.
Right.
Yeah,
It's such a good feeling, though. It's awesome. I love it.
it is. It is. Um, so uh, speaking of you being a big nerd and everything, like the rest of us, you have a podcast,
Hmm.
My Public Life as an American Nerd.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Yeah. So it's funny. So I write for this website called pastrami.nation.com, and we actually do a podcast as well, kind of a weekly pop culture podcast, like YouTube streaming kind of thing. And then I got this email one day from someone who was kind of his name's David. He knew of Pastrami Nation, and he knew Nolan, who was the head guy at Pastrami Nation, and he had been doing this My Public Life as an American Nerd podcast for, I think he had done it for 4 seasons, and then he turned it over to somebody else who wasn't really doing exactly what he wanted, what he asked, what he cared for the show to go about. And then he just reached out to me and was like, hey, you want to do this? You want to host this podcast? He's like, you can talk about whatever you want, pop culture, nerd stuff, anything, as long as it's kind of within that realm, like
Yeah,
you could try it. And I was still a little bit rusty. I'd never done like my own podcast. I'd always kind of been part of a group and it kind of, had that support. Uh, and I was talking to Nolan, the editor of Pastrami Nation. And he's like, dude, you should try it. Like, just give it a shot. Like, you like to talk about this stuff. Like, why not? And so I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it. And I've never actually, I've talked to David over Facebook, and that's really my extent of like who we, that's how I got to know him. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. Just kind of started doing it and realized I loved it. And randomly we'll have guests on and talk about, the newest releases or, do our little reviews, talk about movie news. yeah, stuff like that. So it just kind of fell into my lap in a weird way, but it's working out so far. So
Yeah, I found that interesting because I did notice I was looking at back episodes, which I didn't
Mhm.
start at the beginning. I listened to the most recent ones, but I had
Right.
no idea of this, backstory. So I look back and it's like the descriptions are like Eddie talks to blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who the hell's Eddie? What's going on here? I thought this was
Yeah.
Kevin. It even says like the name of the podcast, and then it says Kevin Hoskinson underneath.
Right.
So I'm like, huh. I was like, so you kind of inherited this. That's a
Yeah.
different story. I haven't heard that one yet. Of like this was somebody's podcast, and then another host took over. So you're the host of this podcast.
Yeah.
Is it your podcast? Like, did he like, or is it his podcast that like you're the host of? Like, how does that work?
It's so it is his podcast essentially, but I don't have any I don't have any like guidelines or boundaries. I could talk about whatever I want, send it to him. He'll edit it, do all the stuff, and put it out there. So it's it still belongs to him, but he just gives me complete free reign. Like he's no notes, no nothing, just kind of dude, do your thing, and he's loving it, and everyone at the network over there loves it. So yeah, it's been really really fun. I've been really really digging it. So right now we're on like a break. We're on a mid season break, but we're coming back in November with new episodes. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's an awesome creative outlet. I have
It
a podcast
does.
like that as well, where um, it's just whatever I want to talk about. It's a lot more, and it's a YouTube channel as well. And that's as fun as this is. That's way more freeing. It's like I can talk about anything. If I want to
Yeah.
talk about, something funny that my kids did, and I can mix that in with, doing movie reviews or whatever
Right.
else. The freedom of that it really is. It's like good. It's kind of therapeutic, right? You can kind of air out anything you're thinking about.
Yep.
It's great.
Very much so.
Um, so yeah, that's that's an awesome outlet to have,
Yeah.
and it's it's cool that even though it's like you're not in complete control of it, you have free reign to do what you want with it.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I've been able to just talk about, I'll talk about a new movie. Like I talked about the new Jurassic Park Dominion, when it came out, and I was able to, go back and reminisce about when I saw Jurassic Park in theaters, and just kind of go off on that tangent and talk about what the series means to me and stuff like that. That was like almost a whole episode. So it's,
Yeah.
whatever it kind of leads to. I don't, I have basically the bullet points of what I want to talk about, but sometimes it just kind of
Yes.
flows from there. So, um,
Yes.
yeah, it's very freeing. It's a great outlet creatively. I don't get to write as much as I want to lately, so this is kind of my kind of substitution for that to stay creative and stay active in that field, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love too, like, I don't keep much notes when I do that podcast. Like when I do this
Mhm.
podcast, I usually have notes. I have something like reminding me of what happened in the episode, etc. But yeah, on that, it's like I usually just get on there and talk.
Yeah.
It's
Same.
completely, yeah, it's great. Um, so yeah, and then you found this or got into this through writing for Pastrami Nation, right? So what
Yeah.
kind of stuff you write? Same stuff, like just all over pop culture or something specific?
Same stuff. Basically, I do a lot of reviews. Used to do a lot more like kind of opinion pieces and stuff like that, just basic, random stuff about random things in the field of pop culture. Um, I've, again, like I was talking about earlier, I wanted to be, an animator for Disney, and then I learned that I can be a writer. So my whole teenage years was spent writing. Like I would write a lot, and it wasn't necessarily reviews or anything like that. It was like short stories,
Mhm.
screenplays, things like that. And then I got hooked up with Pastrami Nation. And they were like, "Hey, you want to review these things? We review." He's like, "You want to review comic books, movies, TV shows, whatnot?" And this was probably about 10 years ago, I think. I was like, "Sure," and kind of got hooked up with him, and just been doing it ever since. Yeah, we write reviews. We try to cover, we're all kind of busy, right? So we all have lives, so it's a little bit hard to keep it 100% up to date.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I write, a lot of movie reviews, TV reviews. You were talking about The Flash earlier. I used to, I watched The Flash religiously. All those CW shows were like my thing. Supernatural is like my like number one show of all time. So I'd write about that. Just anything related to pop culture, anything that interests me, superhero stuff, anything like that. Horror, I love horror. Do a lot of horror movie reviews on there. But yeah, it's fun. So kind of whatever, bless you, kind of whatever we want to do. I do it over there. So yeah.
So with that, I'm guessing you've probably reviewed a few of these Disney Plus MCU series.
Yeah, yeah.
What have you kind of thought overall of the series since they started with WandaVision?
I think so. I just want to put a caveat in here. Caveat. I love the MCU. Like it's just what Feige and co have just accomplished over this many years is just mind-bogglingly like amazing. Like I don't understand that kind of genius. Like I'll never be able to hit that level. The shows have been very much hit or miss for me. I loved WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was just so creative, so unique, so special to especially to her story that I fell in love with it from like the first couple episodes. I love what they were doing. I love the different eras and just how it all added up at the end. But then they kind of got into these other shows that could have been movies, I guess I want to say. I feel like so Loki, I really enjoyed. Loki was good. But then when it comes to stuff like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I wasn't. It just drug out way too long. I was very happy to, and I love the story. I love where it ended. I love that we got the new Captain America out of it. We got all of that. It just felt like it drug on a little bit, and I felt like it could have been a movie.
Yeah, yeah, maybe
Um,
it could have played well as a movie.
what's that?
I said maybe that could have played well as a movie.
I think it could have, and I also think same with Hawkeye. I also feel like Hawkeye was the same. I actually liked Hawkeye though. I think a lot more than a lot of people did. I thought it was fun. I thought I really I loved Kate Bishop. I thought she was a great character, and I loved having her introduced to the MCU. I thought that was really cool, and it was just a fun Christmas series. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was just fun. And then there was What If was fun. I really loved the animation. I like the different, obviously the different what if scenarios were really good.
Yeah,
And then the last two shows, what we'll talk about today, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But so there was Moon Knight. Actually, sorry, there's a couple more. Moon Knight. I don't know. Again, I felt like it could have been a movie. I really like Oscar Isaac. I thought the character, Ethan Hawke, those two together are just incredible.
yeah,
But it didn't really catch my interest. I found it to be a little bit stagnant at points and just found it to be a little boring at times, to be honest with you. It felt like I had seen it before. You know what I mean?
hmm
Um, Miss Marvel, though, I loved Miss Marvel. I thought Miss Marvel was a lot of fun. I thought that um, it was the first time I feel like, obviously I'm not a 16-year-old, Muslim girl, but I felt like I saw myself on screen for the first time in these things. She's a huge fan, just a fangirl, right? Like
yeah,
that was so cool. Like I love that. Um, the story kind of dragged a little bit towards the end, but I thought her story was great. I thought she was phenomenal. I really loved her character. I thought she was a lot of fun. Like it was what teenagers do. Like it felt like that kind of show. It kind of reminded me of like, you know, Breakfast Club meets like a superhero version of that. You know what I mean? It was very much. It had like elements of like Scott Pilgrim, which I loved, and I just thought it was a lot of fun.
yeah. I actually really I enjoyed that series way more than I expected to.
Yeah,
Expect to relate at all to her. But yeah, from episode one, it was like, oh, she's a big fangirl. I 100% relate with that. I'm a
yeah,
big fangirl as well. So,
exactly.
that, and then I honestly, I'm kind of like, as a superhero story, not the greatest, but as
Right.
a character introduction, phenomenal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that stinger at the end with her and Carol kind of switching places or whatever happened, like that got me really excited for Marvels. Like I'm really excited for that movie now. So, and so far, I mean, I'm you know, controversial take, but I would actually put this as She-Hulk really high up on my list, probably right behind WandaVision as my favorite MCU show.
That is wildly controversial, sir.
Yeah, I, you know, I am having so much fun with it, and I feel like with these shows, I feel like they need to do this with these shows, right? I feel like the problem with a lot of the other shows is that we're over here talking about, oh, they could have been movies, right? Like I would have been comfortable sitting in a theater for 2 hours watching that.
Yeah.
But I feel like She-Hulk, it needs kind of this episodic, very. It's not something that's typically released in theaters. It's something different, something unique, something. Obviously not in the whole TV landscape as a whole. We've seen Lawyers, we've seen Ellie McBeal, right? Like we've seen all these kinds of shows. But in the superhero realm, in the MCU, we've never seen this before. Just this kind of straight up comedy, people being people, people having fun. There is superhero stuff in it. Obviously, she's a Hulk, but it's just like it's just her like being a person. And I mean, we'll get into this episode, but like I just love her as a person. I just want to hang out with Jennifer, right? Like I think Jennifer is just an incredible person, and I know the running joke is like, how are these guys falling in love with She-Hulk but not Jennifer, right? Like, how is that possible? And
Yeah.
I'm wondering the same thing. I'm like, dude, like, what is your problem? Like, she's amazing. Like,
That might be the most unbelievable part of this
absolutely, it is.
series is that the
It
men
is.
are not attracted to Tatiana Maslany. Like
It doesn't make
that's
any sense,
what what are we talking about here? Like
right?
that's the most like that's the most that you're having to really stretch your imagination to believe like people
Really,
aren't.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And but yeah, I mean, it just fits my sensibilities more, I guess. I guess it's just, I'm again, like I mentioned, I suffer from anxiety and ADHD and these things that really kind of prevent me from enjoying, a lot of bigger stuff. And I think this just hits my sensibilities right perfectly. They're short episodes, really fun, really witty. I love it because of that.
Well,
So yeah.
I'm kind of with you. I mean, at least I don't think it's at the bottom of my list for sure.
Right.
It's somewhere in the middle because, and I think like me, you probably do the same thing. You're taking this for what it is.
Exactly.
You're not coming in like, how's this going to affect the wider MCU? What's this going to lead to? What's important? Like, who's the major villain here? Like, I came into this thinking, okay, they're doing a sitcom thing.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of levity. There's gonna be a lot of like silly stuff. She's
Mhm.
breaking the fourth wall. If someone's breaking the fourth wall, it's not a serious show. You know what I
You're
mean?
right.
Ever,
Exactly.
ever. Like
Mhm.
that's not gonna happen. So if someone's doing that, you should know what to expect. And I feel like
Absolutely.
uh, for what it is, I'm really enjoying it. Like I don't think it's the best thing I've seen yet. I really and kind of different than you. I love Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's one of my
It
top shows. Um,
was good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it.
Now that you say it, though, I think it would have made a good movie as well. You shorten it up a little bit, still
Mhm.
introduce Walker, which I think was one of the highlights of that
Oh yeah.
series. Um, can't wait to see him in Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but you know, and then Hawkeye. That might be my favorite series. It might be like
Okay.
Hawkeye, Falcon, Winter Soldier. Yeah, loved Hawkeye. But I like the more grounded stuff. That's just I've always, the stuff that's almost believable. Like, okay, well, had they're on steroids basically. I get
Right.
I get it. They're juiced up. That's why they have these powers. That's why it works. And it's so fantastic, but it's still kind of believable. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I love that type of stuff. And I also love like espionage and spy thriller stuff.
Same.
So anytime you give me that, and then can somehow throw in superheroes, I'm all for it. Um, so those are like at the top of my list. But yeah, I'd put She-Hulk right somewhere in the middle because yeah, I was expecting a silly, fun sitcom
Yeah.
show and not to really have any huge impact on the MCU, and that's what I'm getting. Like that's
Same. Yeah, no, I completely agree, and and also the other big complaint was the CGI, right? Like people were, they're still complaining about it too, not as much as they were before it premiered, but again, I'm not expecting, it's a TV show. You know what I mean? Like I know what to expect. Again, you brought it up earlier, the Flash, right? Like you watch the Flash sometimes and there's these CGI monsters, you're just like, dude, like what are you guys doing? But you understand, like, you just take it for what it is.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what I've been doing with this show, CGI included. Like I'm just like, yeah, my son brought it up. We were watching the latest episode, and he's like, yeah, the CGI right there was really bad. I was like, yeah, but I mean, you still laughed, like you still liked it, right? He's like, yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I was like, okay, like who cares?
yeah, the story's still fun. The writing's still good, so
It
it
is.
doesn't take too much away from me. I mean, just think back to the CGI or practical effects that we used to have. It's like, and we still enjoy that stuff. Like we
Mhm.
enjoyed the first X-Men film. There was a lot of weird CGI in that.
Yeah,
But it's like
absolutely.
to this day, I think that film as a whole, it holds up. I think the first X-Men film's still great. So
First two were part two was just mind blowing. I love that movie so much.
yeah, yeah, and we're talking early 2000s. So this
Hmm.
CGI still puts that CGI to shame, and people are
Yeah.
like, "Ugh, gross. This CGI is terrible." Um, yeah, man. I especially think it's fine in a silly show like this.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be different if it was super serious, super dramatic, and the CGI just took you out of it. The
Yeah.
CGI here doesn't really take you out of it. It's like it's a funny, silly show. The CGI looks kind
Yeah.
of silly. So
Yeah, yeah, you're laughing about it the whole time. Like it's just like it's fun, man. Yeah, I don't. People just need to. It's Twitter for you, right?
yes, yes, I'm with you. I try to keep like I'm not purposely trying to. I think people probably think that about this show is that I'm purposely always like positive on stuff. I just love this stuff. Like I'm happy to get anything like anything new superhero. Like the fact that there is a She-Hulk show is amazing. So
Yeah,
I'm already like in the bag. I'm already like, okay, it's like pizza, right? It's like
right.
it's good. Even bad pizza's still pretty good. It's like,
Yeah. No, and that's one thing I really appreciate about your show, to be honest. Like it takes a positive spin to it. And, you know, I wasn't sure really what to expect sometimes when, you do listen to some episodes and you're like, oh, what's this person going to think about She-Hulk or whatever, especially with the cloud around it, in certain spaces. But like everyone that you've had on has been super like, yeah, there's certain things you don't like about it, but you can like talk about it in a very civil and good way and talk about the good stuff, man. There's so much good stuff that overpowers the bad stuff. And I do have to say that's one thing I love about your show, man. It's just it's fun to listen to. Like people come on here like they know what they're talking about and
Mhm.
they enjoy talking about it. They're not just here just to bag on stuff, just to bag on it. You know what I mean? I love it. So yeah.
Yeah, I look for those people, and
Mhm.
that's what's that's kind of my pitch to people that to bring them on is like you don't have to be a podcaster, you don't have to be a comic book reader or anything. Like, do you
Yeah.
like the MCU, or do you at least want to talk about it in depth? Like, come on, like
So cool.
I welcome anyone. So you don't have to be like super. If you don't know some stuff, that's fine. I've got people that have come on who've like they're very casual,
Right. Yeah, and that's cool.
yeah, and it works. It's great. And I've had people on who don't read comic books at all, and that's cool too. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to enjoy the MCU. So, um, yeah, I think it just ends up being a more positive spin because yeah, I try. I don't even think I try. I just go into this stuff looking for the good.
Yeah, same.
And
Every
yeah,
time. It's like, what's the point in going in like I have
yeah,
friends who like, they do kind of call me out on it, because I tend to be super positive about stuff too. And
mhm,
they're like, I remember when the first trailers came out for She-Hulk and they were like, dude, that looks bad. I was like, yeah, but like we haven't seen it yet. Like I haven't watched an episode. Like I can't tell you it's bad because I don't know. CGI is a little choppy, but whatever, dude. Like,
yeah.
um, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like I've done plenty of reviews of stuff that people didn't really like, and I've done like on my YouTube channel, I've done reviews of movies that I didn't really like. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
same.
it's just like with the MCU especially, like I said, I'm just a fan of it. I'm a fan of comic book stuff. If you're gonna make more of it, please do. And I'll ride this till the wheels fall off. I know people are always like, the bubble's gonna
Same.
burst. There's too many comic book movies. Everything's a comic book movie. I'm like, I don't care, because eventually it will end, and I'm gonna absorb all of it that I can till the moment it's over, and
Mhm.
then I'm gonna bask in the glory of the nostalgia of what was and rewatch all the stuff all over again. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm just also it's too. I think that I grew up in a world where there wasn't a comic book cinematic universe. And so I appreciate it a
Yeah.
little bit more than people younger than me, I think. Though the people who have always had it take it for granted, whereas I'm just thankful that it exists. And so, yeah, yeah.
No.
All right. So, what do you say we jump into this specific episode of
Yeah,
She?
definitely. Let's do it.
All right, so they start off the episode with and I'm gonna tell you, my laptop died, so I don't have my notes, but I watched this episode a bunch of times. Um, so we start off with like a little date montage of her and Josh, who she met at the wedding,
Yeah.
and it's very happy, fun, beginning stages of a relationship, butterflies in the stomach type thing. Very fun. Um, and I don't know if you thought going into this episode already that the guy Josh from last week might be a little iffy, but I
Yes.
for sure did.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw your post this today.
yeah, like of course,
Hmm.
what he's gonna be the one guy that's not a piece of crap in this show, and then
Right.
uh, yeah, so um, we go in, we see him happy. I can't fully buy into that, so I'm not like, oh, I'm like,
Right.
come on, what's he
Same.
doing? Um, but they go on several dates. Eventually, she lets him come in. They sleep together, and she wakes up and gets ghosted.
Yeah, he goes her. So I was in the same boat, right? I was like, so I know this guy's like up to no good. Like in my head, I'm like,
Gotta
and
be.
but again, you don't really know, right? So like, part of me was like, all right, like I feel bad for her at this point. I was like, dude, don't do that. Like when that happened, when like she was kept on looking at her phone, I was like, dude, I look at my son, I'm like, he ghosted her. He looks at me, he's like, yeah, that's messed up. I was like, yeah, not
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But I really like that montage, by the way. I thought that was really good. The song playing by Haim was really, really well done. I thought that whole montage was just really, really well shot and just really cool. And like you said, something's up, but like, and again, I was like, it was nice to see her happy. You know what I mean? Like, it was nice to see her enjoying life. For once, finding someone who she's gonna like.
Yeah.
Um, Even though you have a feeling he's gonna just destroy her. So
Yeah. I mean, but she's very cute when she's smitten, like
yeah,
100%. So it was fun to watch for sure. It's like, oh, yeah, that's cute. That's cute.
absolutely.
And everyone can relate that's ever been in any kind of
Yeah,
new
exactly.
relationship, like that excitement that, like, at the beginning of a relationship, and also that feeling if someone doesn't call or text you back or what have you. Like, this was a very relatable episode, I feel like, for most people.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna jump too far ahead here, but there's the scenes where she's trying to get the reception, right? And like
Yeah.
she's trying to do all these things. And like at work, right? So like I have this thing with my kids. I know it's really weird, but I'm like, text me when you get out of school, right? Text me when you get out of school. Let me know you're on your way home.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't get that text, and I'm like trying to find reception to see what I'm doing, but I also have to work at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'm like 20 miles away, like trying to figure out, you get out of school, okay, everything good, trying to find reception while trying to work, like trying to do all these things. I felt her anxiety during certain points of this because of that. Or when you're just waiting for that text from, that guy or girl or whoever, you just want them to text you back, but they're not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally get that.
And don't think I forgot, we're going to talk about Deadpool at the end here after all this. We're going
Oh
to talk
yeah,
about
oh
Deadpool, and we got
yeah.
to talk about Armor Wars. So don't let me
For
forget at the end of the conversation.
will
Don't let me.
not trust me.
All right. Um, so yeah, she gets ghosted. She's mulling around her apartment being sad. And by the time Sunday comes around, he still hasn't texted back. And we know at home, like, okay, he's a bastard.
Yeah.
He did something, like, he was up to something. We were right. Um, but then she gets a call from Emil Blonsky's parole officer saying that there's some malfunction or something. Something's going on with his inhibitor, or something's going on.
Mm.
Maybe he took it off. Maybe he turned into Abomination and broke it off. What have you? And uh, now I found this a little out of, like, is this appropriate? His parole officer is asking his lawyer to tag along.
Yeah, that didn't sit right with me either. I was like,
Weird. Yeah,
I guess it works to get her over there, but I was like, no, that wouldn't happen. Like,
yeah. Like, that wouldn't happen. And, like, I get why he did it. He
right.
literally wanted to Hulk with him, but
Yep.
that happens to be the lawyer of the guy. Like, I don't know. I don't think, I feel like that wouldn't happen. But
No,
I'm picking nits here. So
I was the same. I was in the same boat. Like, I was like, no, like the only reason would be to have the Hulk, right? And then other
yes,
than that, though, like, yeah, just isn't gonna work out.
yeah. So they head up there. Turns out it really was just a malfunction. He's a good guy. Abomination is a good guy. What do you think about this turn? And do you believe it? Are you
I don't
believing
believe it.
that? No,
No, I
no.
don't believe it for a second. I think he's playing some sort of log con that we're eventually going to see play out in one of these series or movies or something, right? Um, I think eventually we're going to see him. Something's going on where he's playing a long con. I think something's going to go down where he's just going to try to, you know, who knows when we'll see it. I don't think we're going to see it here at all. I think it's going to be, last next episode is the last one for the season, correct?
No, two more. So we got eight,
Two more.
nine.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Oh, it is 9 episodes. That's
yeah.
right.
So
Okay.
it's
Um,
weird. I don't know why they do this 9 episode thing, but
yeah. No, you're
what?
right. 9 episodes. Yeah, I think yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think it's cool. Like it's nice seeing Tim Roth and he's always amazing. And
Yeah,
this version of, the character is fun. I'm enjoying it, but again, like we were talking about Josh earlier, like there's something going on there that I don't trust him.
yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking that Abomination, Emil Blonsky, is actually in on that con, and I don't necessarily think that. Like, I think you may be right. Like, he's not good for good, uh,
Right.
but I don't think that he's necessarily in on this malicious stuff. Like, I don't think he's part of
Gotcha.
that. And also just the fact that, like, you know what, he might still be a bad guy. It might be a long con, but he's helping a lot of people along the way. So that's
He
something.
is. He is. And I think it's going to be one of those love-hate relationships eventually for us, the viewers. We're going to
Yeah,
love him for what he's done, but I think he's going to turn back to the dark side, as they say, eventually. At some point, he has to, right? Like,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
let me ask you something. So I've been a fan of a lot of the, like, relatable dark, kind of gray villains that the
Mhm.
MCU has introduced, where, like, you kind of feel for them, you can understand their motivations. Um, but I also, like, now that everyone's a gray villain, I'm kind of missing just the downright evil, and I'm hoping that, like, Kang will, like,
Yo, that'd be
that
awesome.
need. But I don't feel like anyone's really that like, scary anymore. Everyone's just kind of like, oh, well, I kind of see his point, like,
No, yeah, and I've noticed that a lot, and that's just not MCU. I feel like that's just like everywhere now, right? Like all these comic book movies, just movies in general. There's always this kind of this black and white. It's not so black and white anymore. It's very gray. Like you just don't know who to trust, which I
yeah,
guess says a lot about us as humans, and the cult,
yeah,
people we keep company. But yeah, I miss the evil dastardly villain that's just out to for destruction. I miss the Joker. Like the Heath Ledger's Joker. Like just anarchy all the way. Like there was no sympathy there. There was no he was just a bad dude. Like he just wanted to, watch the world burn, and that's exactly what he did, what he tried to do. And I do miss that. I miss that a lot, actually. I
yeah.
really wish we got more of that.
I will say that even though Thanos was had a sympathetic aim of sorts, you knew what he was doing.
Right.
You feel like he thought he was doing the right thing in the end. Like, he didn't actually even, I don't think he wanted to be doing it. It felt like
No.
he should do it, and that eventually the universe would thank him for it. But I still feel like he was a better villain. Like he's the best villain we've seen in a long time in
Easily.
terms of just villainous.
Mhm.
Uh, but I like when they do the great characters, especially if they are characters that we're going to use later. Like
Right.
I totally get John Walker. I get that because, um, man, you hated him when he first showed up as the new Cap. You know, um,
Yeah.
but by the end of that series, you're like, okay, I kind of feel bad for the dude. Like, and then now it's like, you know, he might get the chance to do some good, and so
Right.
I like that. I like when that can happen. But yeah, I don't need every single villain to be someone that I care about. I want them to I want 'em, like I want to root against them, you know?
Same, same. And that's always kind of been my, and that was my, I don't like to get into this discussion too much, but that was my biggest issue with Joker, the movie Joker. Like, I was like, I just, like, it was a interesting story, but like, I didn't need to sympathize with the Joker, like, I bring up the Joker a lot because he's like my all-time favorite villain, but
But
like,
yeah.
yeah, and they did that with him, and I was like, "What are you guys doing?" Like,
Mm,
I don't need to see that. So yeah, I like it to an extent, like you said. I like some characters where you can actually feel sorry for them, and especially if they're new, not new, but like newer to us in certain media, right? So I've never seen, John Walker before, right? Like, I mean, obviously in comics and stuff like that. So that's fine. But then when again, go with someone like Joker and you turn him sympathetic, it's like we've seen him a million times on screen.
yeah.
He's not sympathetic. So yeah, I know what you're saying. I like it to an extent when they can do it, but sometimes it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need look at that. I'm gonna make you say something negative on here. But if it's the last thing I do. Um no, I think that's right. It's some villains need to be just left super villainous.
Mhm.
And I think for a long time I was like, oh, I love what they're doing here. They're making people like human. They're making them like
Right.
real. I love it. But then I was like, okay, this all right, it's too much. The sugar's too sweet. I need like a little bit of bitter. I need some uh old school scary villain for the sake of being a villain, bad guy.
Yeah.
I need a couple of those. Not I mean not everyone, that's fine. Have some people who are in the middle, but give me some real bad guys that are you're afraid of, you know?
I'm waiting for.
Yeah. Um all right. So she goes they go up to this retreat. They find out that his ankle thing is fine. The guy leaves. The parole officer leaves, and Jen gets stuck there because Man Bull and I don't know, not Matador.
Yeah, so I have it, Manbo and El Anguilla.
I'm gonna go
Yes.
with not Matador.
Not Matador.
Yeah, they're having it out, and they smash up Jen's car, and so she is now stuck there. But what did you think of the introduction? Like, we can just like you could jump ahead a little bit, like uh,
No,
these Z-list villains that they
I
brought in this show.
honestly, I did not know a single one of them. I was like, that's how, I didn't know who they were, but I loved them. I thought it was so much fun. The whole therapy thing I thought was amazing, was
Yeah,
fantastic. So funny.
yeah. I
Um,
thought so the only one that I recognize, I think I've heard Man Bull before, but the one that stuck out to me was Porcupine. And
per-
yeah, and I only knew Porcupine because of a podcast I used to listen to, an X-Men like review podcast that in the first 66 X-Men, like old school X-Men, Silver Age stuff, they faced off with Porcupine in one of those like one shot villain issues. And I just remember like the hosts were like, "What is this guy? Porcupine? This is the most ridiculous villain." You know, um, and all the villains were ridiculous back then.
oh
It
yeah.
was
Oh
out.
yeah.
It was all very Batman 66-ish, everything was. So that's where I knew Porcupine Fun. So I was thrilled though to see Porcupine in live action. I'm like, what is this? They're really reaching for these Z-list villains. And I think it's a lot of fun, man, when they can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is
bring
like the show to do it in, which I mean, that's why I love the show too. You can do things like this and it just makes sense. You're just like, oh, okay, like I love
yeah,
it.
yeah, just take the show for as silly as it is, and it's enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. Um, Go in expecting something like this, like Porcupine and Manbull to show up,
Mhm.
Um, so they smash Jen's car. She's stuck there now, and still obsessing over Josh, but she has no cell service. Walking around the entire property, beautiful property, mind you, and I don't know how anyone affords this in
Oh,
Northern
yeah.
California. Like, there's no
No,
way.
not at all.
Um, but can't find service or whatever, but ends up walking into this like discussion circle, right? And that's where she meets Porcupine and the rest of them, and they're really trying to get her to be involved in the therapy and work some things out, and she's not into that.
Nope.
Especially when one of the guys, Wrecker from the Wrecking Crew, earlier in the season comes in. um, I loved the fourth wall break, and it's my favorite one yet, I think, when she's like, can we previously on this guy? Like,
I
I thought
thought that was great too. I was trying to like for a second when she's trying to explain like, yeah, we've seen this guy before. You just wouldn't remember. I'm like, where have I seen him before? Like before they cut to that, I
yeah,
was like, where? That flashback was the previously on. That was fantastic. I
yeah.
love that.
I love that not only did she announce it, but then that it actually, like the show actually did previously on, even though they had already done a previously on and could have covered it in the
Yep.
beginning. Um, yeah, I thought that was great. One of my favorite fourth wall breaks yet. Um,
Fantastic. Yeah.
but so we find out that, yeah, that's who he is. He's the wrecker. He is a member of the wrecking crew that jumped her in the alley. And I'm not buying this guy's story at all. Um, he's all apologetic and taking accountability, and um, yeah, I'm
No.
not buying his stuff at all. But I did like, so this is the first time I think that we've seen Jen transform like full center camera. Like,
Yes.
it's always been kind of a like happens a little bit off camera. You just see her feet change or what have you. I think this is the first time we've just seen her like Hulk out from like human to Hulk, and the way she does it is actually really cool. CGI aside, it was
Yeah.
cool to see her as she ran across the room at him, just
This.
transform into She-Hulk and
Yeah.
grab him up. That was awesome.
That was fantastic. Yeah, this like I love how it was just this really peaceful, quiet thing, and then he walks in and she's like, "No way!" And then she just goes for it, and they're all like, "You need to stop!" And he's like, "You need to go sit in the corner right now." I was like, "Man, it was
Yeah,
hilarious."
sit in the calming chair.
Calming chair, yes.
So well, somehow they end up working that out. And actually, we didn't mention also I can't remember his name now. What's his the vampire wannabe?
Yeah, that was Saracen, Saracen. I'm
So
not exactly sure. Saracen. I had to kind of look him up to kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
put in my notes, but
I
Saracen, maybe?
They said it, yeah, in the episode they called him Saracen. Yeah.
Saracen, yeah.
So and they say that he believes he is a vampire. So we don't, whatever. But interestingly enough, I didn't know this character, but from my research, I saw that he appeared in some Blade comics. So some
I
people
saw
are like,
that too, yeah.
maybe this is a little nod to Blade. That's coming up. Um,
Yes.
Perfect segue to talk about the drama around this Blade movie. Not going well there. They lost their director. The lead actor is not happy with how things are going. Like, is that what you heard about it?
It's exactly what I heard. And the latest I heard, which I don't think this is true. I'm still, I hate spreading rumors and all this stuff, but someone
Yes.
had posted, there's a couple sites that were trying to post Sam Raimi is supposedly in considerations to direct.
Huh.
I don't know the validity of it. I'm waiting to see obviously if Marvel's going to come up with a formal announcement.
Yeah.
I was wondering if Sam Raimi's just the guy now. Like when a project doesn't work out for someone, they're just like, "Here
Yeah.
you go, dude. Go fix it."
Yeah.
Um,
Especially if it needs to be like dark or slightly horror genre.
yeah.
I mean,
But
I feel
Raimi.
like it'd be a good fit if
Oh, I
he's
agree.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, there was some legitimately I wouldn't say scary, but like spooky parts of Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness, that scene where they're, sorry, I don't mean to sidetrack, but that scene where they're up in the room and they're all locked in there and Wanda's just like coming out of the TV. I'm like, man, that's
Yes,
like nightmare feel right there.
great horror stuff. And then the
Yeah.
whole the dream walking, like with using a corpse, like man,
Yeah,
like it was silly, but it was still pretty damn dark. It's like, oh, okay.
exactly.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'd be okay, I guess, if Raimi did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy. That's one of those characters that it's going to be hard for me to accept or see anybody in there except Wesley Snipes because that's the only live action version we've seen. Um,
And
like
he
to
did it
me,
so
that's
well.
Blade. Yeah, to me that's Blade. Like the attitude, like if someone else tries to do it, I almost feel like I'll be expecting it to be leaning Wesley Snipes ish, and yeah, I think it's gonna be hard. It's just like Hugh Jackman. It's like it's gonna be so hard to replace that dude. Like, how do you do it?
You
Like
can't. You,
this has been the world's Wolverine for 20 plus years.
mhm.
Like, what do you?
Yeah.
How do you replace that guy? I mean, I feel like it needs to be done, and I feel like maybe they could correct some of the things in terms of like casting the right size guy, the right kind of look of a
Right.
guy um, this time around. But man, the world knows him as that now, and I feel like he through the years started to look more and more like Wolverine.
He
I don't
did.
know
He
how,
did.
but he did. Like he looked way more like Wolverine. He looks way more like him now in his 50s than he did when he was 30 years old and he did,
Mhm.
the first X-Men film. So incredible to watch. Another good segue, man. So there was the huge announcement on Ryan Reynolds' social media that they're going to be doing Deadpool 3 with Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine.
So I saw that, and because at first I had it kind of spoiled because I saw the poster first, right? And I saw
Uh,
the three in it. I was like, what is this? Like, this has got to be fan made, right? Like, what's going
yeah.
on? And then I went to Twitter, like onto Twitter,
Yep.
and I saw people were posting it. I was like, holy smoke. And then I watched the video, like such a genius, like brilliant announcement video, just so subtle, so awesome.
Ah,
Um, Man, it's insane. Like I don't think we all wanted it, right? But I didn't never I honestly never thought we were gonna get it. Like
yeah.
no one, obviously. Especially with Hugh Jackman being like, dude, I'm done with Logan. I'm done with the character. Let's move on.
Yeah. People have been saying that. I've been hearing a lot of people go, man, I thought he was done. He said he was done after Logan. And he did say that. They also asked him right around the time Logan was coming
Yeah.
out, is there anything that could bring you back? And he said, you know, if I could be in one of those MCU films, if I
See,
could be with the Avengers, I would totally do that. But that's probably the only thing that would bring me back. And here we are.
here
A
we
man,
are. That is crazy. And
yeah,
people are like talking about like the timeline stuff. They're like, well, he died in Logan. It's like, yeah, but this takes place like long before Logan, guys. Come on.
yeah, at least, 4 or 5 years before Logan. So, um, yeah, that doesn't bother me at all. And also with the multiverse thing going on, man, you could do anything you wanted. You could say this is not quite the same version of him, but it's
Right.
another version of him, but it's very similar. A lot of stuff you could do. You could man, if you I don't know, what happens if you pull that Wolverine out of his universe before he
Right.
dies?
Right. He's not dead.
Now, I do think this is the swan song. I do think this is his final thing. I think that he's coming back to do this collaboration with Ryan Reynolds. I think it's perfectly planned. I think it's beautiful that they get to do it right together for
Yeah.
the first time, with not a mouth sewn shut version of Deadpool. Um, I think that we've been wanting this. They've been hinting at this. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have been bantering back and forth for 15
Yeah.
years, it seems like. Um, and it always seemed like you were really just watching Deadpool and Wolverine banter back and
Same. Their
Ryan
chemistry
Reynolds
together is amazing.
yes, and it was just like it is such a fun fake rivalry. It's so great to watch. Like they're the best of friends, and you can tell. And
Mhm.
it it's just magic that it's going to happen. Like we get to say goodbye. I think it's going to be the final one. I really do. He can't go on. if people are expecting, like, I think maybe people might be upset. They're like, wait a minute, they're going over him. Like, how's that going to work? I don't think it's forever. I think they're going to make this film, and then eventually they will recast Wolverine. They'll have a different
They're
version.
going to have to.
Yeah, he's getting older. He's said himself as it gets harder and harder every year to get in that kind of shape.
Mhm.
It's got to be nearing impossible now. Like, um, very, very hard work to get in that kind of shape. He
Yeah.
said he spent a year preparing for Logan, like to be, big enough for Logan. So I really do think this is the final thing, but what a way to go out. Like, what a perfect
Yeah.
way to go out.
Epic. Well, what are your thoughts on Sean Levy directing? Is it Levy or Levy? Sean Levy.
Yeah, well, I think that he and Ryan Reynolds have built a relationship through the past couple movies that they've done together. Um, so I think it's probably a good fit. I mean, Ryan Reynolds pretty much plays Ryan Reynolds in everything.
Right.
Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds. I mean,
Yeah.
it's synonymous. Like, they are the same person pretty much. Um, and so I think that Sean Levy will probably let Ryan be Ryan.
Mhm.
Um, I think that Ryan will have a lot to do with the whole
Absolutely.
process. And
Yeah.
so I'm fully on board with it. I enjoyed Free Guy. I thought it was funny. I loved how they brought in MCU stuff and Star Wars stuff, and that was an enjoyable film for me.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I loved it.
And then, um, what was the other one that he did where he goes back in
The
time?
Adam Project.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. It wasn't top tier for me, but it was fun, and
Oh,
it was Ryan Reynolds. It was
yeah.
good.
I also liked what he did with 'cause, he has a relationship with Hugh Jack. He did Real Steel, which I thought was
Yeah,
really, really good.
yeah.
I actually really, really liked that movie. It was like Rock'em
It
Sock'em
is.
Robots the movie, and I loved it.
Yeah. It's under talked about, underappreciated.
Yeah.
I think
Oh man.
it's because it happened so long ago and it just fell by the wayside. Basically, anything Hugh Jackman did while he was making X-Men, kind of
Yeah.
like people didn't notice, but it's like, man, Swordfish. Man, this guy made such awesome
I love
movies.
Swordfish.
So did I. So did I. Um. Anyway, yeah. Enough gushing over Hugh and Ryan. I wherever we were in the episode, I don't know. But I can't wait to see that. I cannot
Oh,
wait for that.
same. I'm super stoked for it. What, 2024, right?
Yeah.
September
Yeah.
2024. Yeah. I'll be there 100%.
Yeah. I guess this fills in one of those timeline slots, right? On the timeline that they've been showing that had the empty slots
Yeah.
on it, 24 and 25. I'm
Yeah.
guessing that maybe that's one of them, unless they're going to add another one.
I don't. It's a lot.
I'm betting that's it. I mean, they had to have been in talks and planning this for a long time already. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, yeah. All right, back to She-Hulk. Back to She-Hulk. Um, where are we at? So therapy ends up going well.
Yeah.
And she actually gets some stuff off her chest. I didn't feel like there was any real revelation. So
No.
usually when a character delivers this kind of like monologue, and they're spilling their guts, you learn something new about why they were feeling a certain way, or whatever, like, a motivation behind their feelings or whatever. Didn't really get that. I feel like we
Mm-mm.
already kind of, it's just reiterating what we already knew, that like Jen would just want to be Jen sometimes and wants people to appreciate her for her. And
Yeah.
and that's basically what she was pouring out. And she thought this guy was that. And so it was extra heartbreaking when you have this Hulk thing going on and she really believed it was just about her. And no, this guy just disappeared. And still, she doesn't know what it was. Was it,
No. Nope. Yeah.
was it that he was attracted to the Hulk? Hey, it doesn't seem that way. So to
Nope.
her, it's like, this guy just didn't enjoy being with me. I don't know. Just ghosted her. So, um, but she comes out of therapy, she comes out of the retreat feeling pretty damn good. She's like,
Yeah.
she's got it back. She got her groove back. And I love everyone signs a card for her. It's a very cute sending off.
It was very
At
cute.
the end. But so she heads off smiling once again, even though this guy has been deleted from her phone, potentially deleted from her life, but I'm sure we're going to see him again. Um, and then we get the revelation finally, what really
Yeah.
happened. And
I
I've
love
noticed,
that cut. It was just
yeah,
like 3 days later or three
yeah.
days earlier.
I was going to say they've done that in the past. I think the
Yeah.
past two episodes. And in lieu of a post-credit scene where that would probably happen, they're doing it just to end the episode and not doing a post-credit scene, which is cool with me.
Oh
It's
yeah,
fine. I don't
absolutely.
care where you do it. Post-credits too, also I feel like should be adjacent to story, but not part of story necessarily.
Right,
Um,
right.
you know, they always used to be used to connect the films together and stuff like that, like get
Yeah,
us hyped for the next thing. So when you're doing a post credit in every episode and you're just furthering the story, I feel like that's not necessary. Just end the episode with that,
yeah.
you know? Um, so, but it works well here. They do the flashback. I'm very confused by this scene though. So he copies some information from her phone, maybe
Right.
clones her phone, right? Um, but then he sends a message to, it looks like Hulk King,
Yeah.
who I guess runs the intelligentsia, whatever it is. We haven't fully seen what it is yet, but website. Um, but when he texts the guy, he sends him emojis that imply that he has acquired her blood, the Hulk blood.
Right.
But we never saw that. We never saw him with a vial. We never saw him actually get the blood. All we saw was the phone transfer. Did you
Yeah.
see any?
No, there was no needle, like no way for him to get the blood. No.
Yeah. And what I'm guessing is he needed to get in there to when she was not She-Hulk. And that was the whole point of like loving Jen for
Right.
Jen, so that he could extract the blood, right? Makes complete sense. I just don't it we didn't see it, and
We
I'm
never saw it
confused
happen.
at how it didn't wake her up. Like, man, that guy's got to be really good at phlebotomy. Like, perfect.
Yeah, right.
Gets the, you know, I want him to take my blood next time I have to give blood or give me
Mhm.
shots or whatever. Like, that's my guy. Call Josh.
Absolutely. Same here.
Yeah. So don't trust anyone named Josh. That's the lesson
No,
of this.
that's the big lesson of today's episode, of the latest episode. So I freaking Josh, man. We knew it, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
fan
So
of Josh.
what did you think about this episode overall, like as comparison to the other ones? Because, like you said, the series have been hit and miss.
Yeah,
I feel like this series specifically has been that way. Like some episodes are, I'm
yeah.
like, and it's great, and some are like, it was fine, whatever.
This one was kind of didn't, like you said, there wasn't really a whole lot of story happening except for the Josh revelation, right?
Yeah,
So I'd put it kind of mid tier. Like it wasn't the worst episode. Oh gosh, I can't even think of what I would consider the worst episode yet. Um, I really loved the wedding episode. I'm sorry, I thought that was a great
I did too.
episode.
I did
Yeah,
too. My
I thought that was
favorites. Yeah,
fantastic. So I don't think any of the episodes have been particularly bad per se, but
yeah.
none of them have been like, I wouldn't call any bad, but this one was definitely mid tier. Like it's
Mhm.
fine. I enjoyed it. I laughed. I love seeing the villains and stuff. I thought that was really fun. But overall, it's just kind of a episode. Could have maybe lived without it. You know, to be honest.
I feel like the series that way, and that's what's great about it.
Mhm.
It's like you don't need it.
Right. Right.
Who cares? Like I don't only get things that I need. Some things I just want. Some
Oh,
things I don't even know I want, but I enjoy them when I get them. So it's fun, man. You don't. It's not necessary. It's not, but it's fun.
it's not. And I do feel like the show really serves as like I love how it plays with expectations, right? Like so
Yeah,
part of me really wishes that they never show Daredevil in any of the promotional material. Like I wish we never saw him, never knew he existed. Like, that throwaway thing with him with his helmet, not throwaway thing, but when you see his helmet in the in the
yep,
in the box, like that would have been a really cool surprise. Been like, they might be leading to something, but maybe not. But we've seen him in the trailer. Like we know he shows up. And I think
yeah.
that's what people are watching the show for, right? They're like, "Where's Daredevil? Where's Daredevil?" Um, but the show is so fantastic with kind of playing with those expectations too, right? Like it knows what it's doing. Like it's making fun of everybody who
Yes,
makes fun of them. All the incel stuff and all that stuff, is just,
it's
and that's one thing I love about the show. Like it's so self-aware that it's like you guys like just
yeah.
you guys are annoying, you guys aren't helping us.
Yeah.
You fanboys who are complaining about the show need to shut up. You'll see Daredevil eventually. It'll happen, not
You know,
right now.
I think the only thing missing that so far is for Jen to actually name drop Daredevil and say that. Be like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I think it'll happen. I think either um at the end of episode 8 or something, it's gonna be like, guys, we know that you're only here for Daredevil.
Exactly.
He'll be here next week, okay? He'll
Yeah.
be here next
Good.
final episode. Enjoy. And honestly, I would, as much as I've been looking forward to Daredevil showing up and seeing
Yeah.
what the character is going to be like, I I almost hope, just to mess with people, he's like in the post credits of episode 9, and that's
Oh,
it.
same. Oh,
Just for a second, right?
I'm praying for that, to be honest.
Total tease. Yeah, this is fourth wall breaking to the extreme when they make fun of portions of the audience. How perfect is that?
I love that.
In this episode, she literally said, "Wait, maybe it was last. No, it was this episode before she goes. I think, or no, it was last episode. She's like, you tell me, Kevin." She says, she's like, "I don't care what a bunch of idiots on Twitter think." Like, oh, it was this episode
It was
because
this episode. Yeah. Yeah.
she was like, what are you so upset about? Is it the intelligentsia site?" She's like, "I don't care what a bunch of losers on Twitter think about me." Like, perfect. I love that stuff, dude.
Yeah, same. I'm on board with it. Like, please, like, make fun of them all you want. Like,
Yeah,
it's annoying for us too to have to hear
yeah,
it all day.
yeah. Because you know what? I don't begrudge anyone's opinion. Like, if you dislike it,
Same.
great. If you have criticisms, awesome. But like, to be like just like so negative and have to spew that, like, it's come on, it's
Drives
boring.
me
What are you
nuts.
doing? Yeah, it's like, is that fun? I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it would be any fun to me.
No.
Like, to sit around thinking about things I dislike. Come on,
Yeah.
so much, so much more fun things to do. Um, but yeah, I overall I feel about the same. It was probably like a mid-range episode. I'm
Mhm.
not sure where I'd place it, but it had some great moments. Like I said, the fourth wall break was really great.
Yes.
Making fun of the Twitter warriors was great. Um, and the introduction of the more Z-list villains was awesome.
Fun. Yeah. We'll
So
probably never see them again, but
yeah, and that's fine. I
yeah,
love it.
that's totally fine.
I love it. So yeah, all in all, I'm good with this series, man. Like I said, it's not my favorite, but it's definitely
Oh
not
yeah.
my least favorite. It's been fun all the way. And I I don't care. I never cared if they showed Deadpool, like, or not
Oh,
Deadpool, if
same.
Daredevil. Because when they said,
Yeah.
we're gonna show Daredevil, I'm like, oh, cool. But I know there's an 18 episode Daredevil show coming.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
is it gonna do for me to see him for 30 seconds in this series?
Yeah.
Nothing. But
Absolutely
make me
nothing.
go, yeah, then I'm gonna be like, what? Like, well, I guess I gotta wait a year and a half to see
Right.
him again. So I'm completely fine if they don't even show Daredevil. If they just tease us. I think they will for 2 seconds at the end. Um,
Yeah. Totally cool with that.
and then I hope they make fun of the people that were expecting it to, which includes me and some of my guests as well. Like, fine,
Right. No. Yeah.
you are so self-aware, and I love it.
Yeah.
Um, but dude, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on to do this.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you having me on it. This is a lot of fun. I love talking about this stuff, man. It's nice to be able to just to kind of get into these conversations with people. Like I said, like I have my family who watches it. My son watches it with me, but he's not, super deep into it. We'll talk
Yes.
about some stuff what we like, but no, man, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, that's funny because like with my kids, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, you watch it with them, yeah, you enjoy it. There's a little banter, you're talking back and forth,
Right.
but it's like, all right, now I got to go talk to my old friends. Leave me alone. I got to go talk about this for real. This serious stuff needs to be discussed in a serious.
Exactly.
I can't be talking to kids about it. Come on, this is adults. Um, but yeah, it's so great. It's great to be able to do this. It's the whole reason I do the podcast, and I love doing it. Um, and you are familiar with the podcast, so you know that we do a big roundtable discussion at the end of each
Mhm.
series. So I hope you are, willing and able to come
Yes,
back.
anytime,
That'd be great.
for sure.
And just before, I know we mentioned a little bit at the beginning, but tell people where they can find your work, all of your work, everything you do.
So you can find me on Twitter, Kevin_Hoskinson, and find me on Facebook, Instagram under the same thing. My Public Life as an American Nerd is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We also have the I actually host another podcast for Pastrami Nation called Brick Therapy, where we talk all Lego stuff. So it's all Lego all the time. You can find that also on YouTube, Twitter, or sorry, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, you can follow me on all those. You can also follow Pastrami Nation at all those as well. So yeah, you can
Do you
find all my stuff.
do you and this may be how we connected even. Do you follow my previous guest, the Brickheads, X Bricks?
No, but I no, I do follow him. Yes. So I was actually listening to that podcast. I was like, wait, I this guy sounds familiar. And then went to look him up on Twitter. I was like, oh yeah, I do follow him because he does all those custom like brickheads, and they're freaking awesome.
Yes.
I love those things. Um, but yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I follow him. He's really really good. I love his stuff.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you and I connect? I don't even know then. Like through someone, but
I honestly, we've been friends for a while on Twitter.
uh yeah,
I cannot. To be honest, I can't recall. I think it was just one of those happenstance, and I actually think I think it was the podcast, the Marvel Plus podcast that I was like listening to, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like I had come across it somehow. Someone had shared it on Twitter, or I can't remember, but yeah, I came across the podcast, and I found you on the Twitter and just started following you 'cause I really
awesome.
enjoy your
Awesome.
content and stuff. So yeah,
Cool,
that's
man.
how I found you. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for the
First.
compliment. Um, yeah, man, it's been like I said, once again, man, thank you so much because it has been a great conversation. It
Yeah.
doesn't always flow this smoothly. Sometimes every once in a while, don't tell the other guests, but I have to cut out little silent parts in between
Right.
the not in this episode, man. We're like bam,
So
bam, bam. Um,
so
so
good
yeah,
here.
man. Love the conversation. I'd love to have you back for the round table. Thank you
Absolutely,
so much,
man.
man. All right. Thanks, man. I will talk to you later.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
See ya.
Yeah.